I'm Beverly Myers Hannon, and my husband of 31 years was an Ohio State Highway patrolman, did 25 years with the patrol, and August 31st of 2020, committed suicide. He was in the Marine Corps for 4, got out of there, went straight to the patrol, was great at his craft. He was a good trooper. He was Blue Max, he was district trooper, he was an excellent, patrolman. He had stolens, things, and he loved to chase cars and do all that, and things, it takes a toll on your body. So back issues, knee issues, neck issues, shoulder issues, didn't really address them. So came to the point where towards the end of his career, he needed back surgery. In 1 year, we did 3 back surgeries and 1 neck surgery. Wasn't successful to come back into uniform by the next July. Had to kind of come to that conclusion of what are you going to do? So he had 25 years, he was 48. So we were encouraging him to retire because he was not going to wear the gun belt again. He wasn't happy about that. It wasn't his choice or his decision. He was the type that things had to be his decision, and then he was okay with it. Retired in July of 17, and I told a coworker, I said, this is not going to go well. He didn't have a plan after retirement. And I think that's a big thing, if I stress, is that you have to think of that plan. Or what are you going to do after retirement? You're 48. It's not like our parents who retired by 50 and then stayed retired. We're at the age where we have to work till we're 65 to get on Medicare. It's insurance, it's things like that. He didn't recover well from surgeries. He didn't recover well from the pain. He didn't recover and chronic pain, and fell into depression. I think the depression just spiraled out of control. He got in a rabbit hole that he couldn't get out. He was working in 2019. I kept encouraging him because he didn't have a reason to get out of bed. He did adult probation. He didn't love that job at all. He loved the people he worked with, but he hated the job. He went part-time as a field officer, enjoyed that a little better, but then COVID hit. We all got shut down. He would turn to alcohol for the pain, for the depression, and it just made his depression worse. I'd say 2018 or so, he started talking about, I just don't want to be here anymore. He was serious, and it just got worse and worse. June of 2020, the suicide comments were coming more active. I would find him on the side of a bed with a gun, just sitting there looking at it. I had to call a fellow patrolman down one time because he locked himself in a bedroom, and he, I knew it was serious. I called a friend, and this friend was a Marine Corps buddy, and he drove from Indiana that day, June 26th, he said, I'm not calling him on the phone, I'm going to talk to him. He came over the whole day, spent with him, and by the time I got home from work at 5, I'm pulling in the driveway, and I get a call from his sister and said, don't go home. I said, I'm in the garage. What do you mean? She's like, well, if you go in and it goes bad, leave and call me. So I come into the kitchen, and he met me with a gun in the kitchen, and we had an altercation, and I was able to get out with a handful of hair and hands on, but I got out that day, and I just left. But what just happened? I was like, what just happened? And it was serious. He was going to kill me and then kill himself. He said that. I didn't know what to do. I called my friend, whose husband was an attorney, and he was encouraging me to call the police, but it's just such a fine line. What do you do? He's going to lose his livelihood. I'm worried about him more than myself. And I shouldn't have been, but I did. I did file a protection order that next week, and I tried to do a civil protection order where he could keep his gun, but that didn't go well, and the judge said no. So the guns were taken, and he just was devastated, went into a drinking spiral out of control. I called his friends, I called you, I called a lot of people for help. You know, I was safe. I was with friends. Didn't tell my kids where I was because I just didn't want to put them in the middle. They're out of the house at this time because they're adults. He ends up in the hospital for a week, you know, and then gets out and stopped drinking for probably a few weeks after. So I had lots of friends calling saying he wants to talk to you. So I modified the protection order so that we could speak. And I said, I'm not coming back right now until you get help. For all those years, I would say to him, please go to the doctor, please go talk to someone, please. And he was very stubborn. He wasn't going to do any of that. I got a therapist at that time, the day I left, and started talking to her for myself. And I was gone from end of June. I got an apartment August 1st because I didn't want to put these friends in the middle of our situation. And by that time, I was speaking with him, and he was livid that I had got an apartment. I moved in, and he just kept saying, you need to come home. And I said, no, not till we both get help. He tried for, I think, a few weeks with one. My daughter would listen in. She's like, he's not being very truthful, Mom. He's not being honest about what the core issues are, and was kind of in denial and wanted to kind of put it on me. Things ramped up with us, a lot of arguing, a lot of fussing. And the one weekend, I asked him for a divorce on a Thursday. I said, you know, he just said, why don't we just get a divorce? And I said, okay, let's do that. The morning of August 31st, I get up, I go to work, and he knew my schedule. And he had my other set of keys. He was in my car, in the back seat, covered up with a blanket, with 3 guns in the back seat, 2 in his truck that was in an alley with an AR. Luckily, I just had this sixth sense for that whole weekend that I was in danger. I opened the back door of the driver's side and saw him, because normally I would just get in the driver's seat. I would just sit in there and he would have sat up and shot me in the head. My instinct was, this is not good. This is bad. And the word, you need to run. And so I did. He rolled out of the car and I saw the gun. And he said, I'm now gonna kill you. I started yelling. I was in an upstairs apartment, and there was a downstairs of an old house. Taylor, the downstairs tenant, heard me and immediately called 911. And I could hear, it's a really long driveway, and I could hear the sirens before I hit the end of the driveway. And I just threw my bags and just ran as quick as I could down the street. He shot at me twice. And, you know, the whole flight and fear, or you lose all cognitive skills. I couldn't hear, I heard the shots, but they were distant. The breathing, the heartbeat, I just ran. My last look at him was him in a stance at the end of the driveway before I turned the corner at the end of the street. I was able to get 911 on the phone, but they already knew. They knew what was going on. I went up to this intersection, hid in these people's bushes, and the PD was there. He turned around when he heard the sirens, went back into the garage, shut the door, and took his own life. Once I got in the patrol car, got to the station, I was safe. But I worried about him. What has he done? Because he's not going to jail, or he's not going to prison. So I knew what he was going to do. And he did. I was lost. I didn't know what to do. You know? People started rolling in, all of our patrol friends, our other friends, his coworkers, they all found out I was at my parents. And the support was just phenomenal from our patrol family, from his coworkers, from everyone. But what do I do now? I just talked to my therapist as much as I could. I think we talked every day that week. And then I was like, well, we have to, they took him for an autopsy. And I was like, we have to have a funeral. But then I was like, do I have a funeral? Do I not have a funeral? But I was like, that's not fair. My kids needed closure. And I didn't know if I'd go. I didn't know what we would do, if it would be private or what. So my friend, who's the funeral home director, she said, don't do anything you'll regret later. Think about not what happened that day, but maybe the old, person. So I did. So it was COVID. We had a funeral. We had to make modifications, but I, get there that day. I'm like, I can't let my kids stand up there by themselves. A lot of people said they didn't know if I would be there or if I'd be in the back or, what I would do, but I couldn't. And I needed those people to come through that line and hug my kids and tell them they're there for them. So we did, but it won't resurface, maybe unless there's a trigger or anything, but then you know how to deal with it. Even with both therapies that I did, they both right away said, and I didn't get it, it's okay to be happy again. And I was like, no, it's not. It's not. How are you going to be happy again after this? And they both kept saying it to me and repeating it and telling me that. And then one day I said, it is okay to be happy again. That's how I move on, how my kids move on. My kids don't need to take care of another parent. They shouldn't have to take care of me now or worry about me. And we, I just wanted to show them, if you get knocked down and it's bad, it's that bad. I mean, because it's traumatic. It was horrible. You get up and you recover and you heal and you move on.